The War Hero by Michael Lieber. Narrated by Peter Walters. Chapter 1. Mr. Lidman. Despite the menacing Midlands chill nipping at every passing nape, Mr. Sun tries with high determination to beat down bright upon the cobble-damp streets, the early morning sounds sporadically piercing the dewy, new-day silence like a broken wind chime, each prominent bong belonging to the usual goblin-esque creatures that limp about at 7:30 a.m. on a Friday morning, with one particular relevant ruckus spearing above all others and puzzling pie-eyed pedestrians. The heavy repetition of weary running, its echo fading with every quick-footed connection as a young, puppy-fatted male's flustered, panicky pins carry him panting around the corner of a locked and local library. Avoiding a near collision with a doddering old deer with a barking corgi, the youthful yet exhausted figure accelerates once more down the Birmingham High Street, his worried expression a red tomato whistling overheated jets of propelled vapour into the cold morning mist. Checking his watch in a flailing flap, he dashes the bag-eyed gaze of a yawning market stall. Its newly read newspapers scream at his running rush with their big, bold fonts. Easterly winds are coming, storm tonight. Slowing down at the bare, belated time of 7:37 a.m., Chubby and Late skids to a halt outside a gold-like building, styled in Neo-Palladian sandstone, 3 stories tall, with its sobering title nestled between a similar number of grumpy granite eagles, perched proudly around the deeply engraved lintel letters, Lidman and Son, Accountancy, established 1856. Bounding 3 steps at a time while simultaneously trying to improve his overall appearance, paying due attention to a newly discovered jam stain between tie and shirt, preceded by an act of clumsiness, a clowning trip at the last step, landing at the base of the door with a thud. Regaining his winded self in a manner that only a robust toddler would attempt, he plants and then vertically extends both legs before craning up the rest of his upper blubber, ignoring the shallow injuries to his roly-poly ham of a left arm and right hand, seeing them as a passing trifle compared to the terrible tempest that awaits him inside. Painfully pulling, parting and entering past the oversized baton brass handles, he intakes a profound, lingering musk of ink-covered copper and chemicalized floor cleaner, which to the fresh-aired nostril translates to an unnatural sweetness upon entry. A large, unbeloved, hollowed-out hall of a business swallows up his slovenly silhouette, complete with complimentary earplugs, wall-to-wall hat racks and 7 high-reaching windows on either side, stretching their ambitious altitude to a granular ceiling, its adjacent floor infested by row after row of individually seated, silently suited accountants, typing as vigorously as their digits will allow. The repetitive and almost deafening sounds of click, clack, click of 50 or more heavy adding machines being prodded beyond their warranty reverberates around the sparsely covered wood-panelled walls. Leading from the entrance through the chaos, an 8-foot-wide empty aisle of mottled brown protracts its long length to an intimidating grandeur staircase. Peeping weaves revealing its once youthful shade of emerald green. Still wheezing slightly from the fall, the not-so-punctual porkster spies his empty desk laying lonely at the back of the room, next to a draughty, cracked window pane and a wall-leaning stepladder. creeping stealthily through the sea of bowed heads and billowing paper ribbons. His greasy comb-over colleagues glance up at him one by one with a chaste look of amusement and glee before melting back down to a deep-rooted absorption. Reaching the untidy workstation, he channels the fine physicality of one who arrived at 7 o'clock sharp with half an hour's beavering boxed up and ready to go. Slicking a dirty bowl cut with a gob of spit, he tugs at a stubborn desk drawer to release a congealed fountain pen. But before the pussy-pink hue of his bubble-fish cheeks can return to their natural shade of pasty white, smack! A bony opened hand strikes the back of his head with such force he buckles forward like a poorly stuffed rag doll onto the messy ink-splattered work surface. Recoiling back with a bulbous bolt of stinging pain, covering temple and crown with wheedling digits, the dilated dots of an unlucky man wince up at a tall, elongated frame with 2 immaculately clean spectacle lenses glinting back at him. "Late again, Codbury. Dear, dear, oh dear," barked the tall man with a few dry tuts added on the end. It was the bed clock, Mr. Richmore, sir. Didn't ding its bells. It won't happen again. Promise it won't." "Promise? It's past your scheduled time of employment. Warned you before, made a real point of it too." "Sir, I'm begging you, I am. Don't tell Mr. Lidman. I'll do 10 times the work I normally do, 100 times more," pleaded the cod in a panting panic. "I'm sorry. No more time for you, lad. Chances are plenty you've had. Now get up them stairs sharpish." Welling up, Cod blubbers onto the sleeve of his ill-fitting second-hand suit, the tall skelly-bone standing reaperish with folded shoulder limbs infected by a toughened glare, contemplating over the raucous sound of click-clack-click, whether to grant one last shred of sympathy for Codbury's 4th disregard for precise punctuality. Decision quickly made, Richmore angrily tightens his beautifully ironed navy-grey tie deep into the drooping folds of loose skin below the chin, before lunging forward and roughly hoisting the weeping blotter to a standing blub. "Listen here, our kid. It's my neck on the chop if he found out. The boot, the big push, the big goodbye. You think I'm willing to risk it? You're kipping on a cloud, you are. Head office, now." In a strained act of kindness, the bean-poled mean man stuffs into Codbury's fat hand a neatly folded white cotton handkerchief from a conservative waistcoat. Mournfully, Cod slugs through the field of clicking calculators to the centralised aisle of mottled brown, swinging a pair of soggy muffin eyes to an impatient Richmore, pointing a long knobbly finger towards the narrow double doors horribly accessible via the grim grandeur staircase. Proceeding with a dry gullet, the boy ascends the dusty steps, wiping away the streaming snot from under an ink-stained sniffer to the added accompaniment of looks and sniggers, his increased elevation revealing a vertical line of white light between the ajar wooden twins dominating a dark, spacious landing. Creeping a few feet forward, cloaked in shadow, uncontrollably chomping his jagged fingernails, he performs a leaned peep through the glowing gap to the ominous office beyond. Whizzing left and right, the beady bulb of Cod scans the room of doom, famous among the lower orders for loudly spitting out unemployed meat gristle from its inner enigma, a terrifying spectacle that was increasingly talked about but never actually seen. Making out the faint outlined shape of a sinewy figure hunched heavily over an old oak desk, The narrow double doors snitch to their beloved master with an almighty creak, causing the lumbering lad to leap 3 feet back from the mischievous hinges, not moving a muscle for fear of emulation from his brotherly floorboards, his fear willy erected further by a growling gravelly grunt resonating from inside the semi-sealed enclosure. "What is it now, Richmore?" Cod says nothing, statued still. Bare teeth in shadow, the rumbling room oscillates a second boom. "It better be good news on this day." Overcome with a sudden flightful adrenaline, most likely inspired by the hellish lower floor sounds of Mr. Richmore manhandling yet another ill-fated employee, something about wearing red socks and it not even being Christmas, provoking a forward bound with a handle grabbing hand and opening fist, craning his portly oval mug through the gaping gap. "It's Codbury, sir. Milton Codbury. Junior clerk and that. Sorry for any disturbing." The fat boy, not looking up in an uneasy slink, quickly plans 3 pathetic gestures to engage sympathy from an unpiqued employer. The first a raised gaze, with the second and third manoeuvres being a helpless wry smile, before bowing his head shamefully down for a finishing third. The first and second are performed perfectly. Coddy does indeed look up and does indeed give a small, wry smile, but the last vital break of connection is instantaneously betrayed and rapidly replaced with a bewitched and bubbered stare, as 2 bright blue sapphire eyes fix to his own with a profound frown of disturbed peace. "Yes, I am aware. Mr. Codbury, well," grunted a clement boss from behind the desk. The blobby boy tries to articulate from a sandal-dry pie-hole, projecting only hot husks of Sahara air. "On second, no need," boss added, dropping an octave lower. "There's only one reason you'd be sent up here. Late more than once." Wilting with embarrassment, Cod shamefully nods at his uncomfortably small shoes, helpless under the dulcet grumbles. Not appearing meek or mild-mannered, quite the reverse, the shy, bossly sentences made Codbury feel more lowly and dispensable than all the raving Richmonds of his life put together. "If it's more than once, Mr. Codbury, you'd better take a seat." Infiltrating the small rectangular-shaped office with its crumbling, germ-infested decor and depressingly lit corridor, leading off to an eerie darkness, a rickety guest chair greets the grubby Cod, his fishy eyeline falling to a strategically placed desk plaque, the bold New Roman lettering of Managing Director Daniel J. Lidman, unpolished and barely made out through the old grooves of grime. As the old boss licks through a leather-bound book of attendance, the late lad reflects over the various break-time rumours he had heard in regards to what the seldom-seen Lidman actually looked like. Out of all the over-exaggerations, Codbury had 2 favourites. The one about him being 7 foot tall, 4 foot wide, and living a secret double life along the borders of Mexico, wrestling under the ticket-selling pseudonym El Lido de Mono, followed by the second migrating myth about him being steaming drunk one New Year's Eve and playfully purchasing on a whim a small Buddhist island off the coast of Japan and having it officially renamed Lidland. Being fairly certain that neither of these statements were true, it added a strange deflated note of surrealism. Here he was, right in front of him, running a cracked fingernail down the C's on page 12. Not the mountain man of lower floor legend at all. In fact, He was quite small, certainly on the side of broad, but yet compacted, as if the years had shrunken his once immense mass. However, the origin still remained, impressive, he thought, almost mesmerizing. His features are striking, a noble nose, large forehead, and piercing lunar lagoon eyes, suffocated by a sea of long crow's feet, hairy and hunched with an unyielding weight creaking down onto the old oak desk. Cod even contemplated the humorous possibility that if some near-bankrupt zoo in a faraway land had bizarrely shaved a handful of elderly silverback gorillas in a desperate dash to improve attendance, forgiveness would be given to any for thinking one had cleverly escaped, smuggled itself aboard a cargo ship to fulfil its lifelong dream of running a Midlands accountancy firm. As the hiding-page name Codbury Milton finally surrenders with a white calligraphy flag, a cold Arctic air blow-pearls along Coddy's neckline. The culprit, a double-hung window at office end, half open, rattling from the ever-changing weather. "Looks like the storm's dropping in, sir. Might be the worst on record in 20 years, me mum says," bumbled the boy, attempting to lighten the sombre setting. "Would you like me to close it? The window, sir? It's awfully chilly." Morphing from a studious mute, Lidman sharp barks with such sudden volume his near employee scare jumps as a result. "Jammed. Needs fixing. Says here you were late at the beginning of this year, 28th of January. 45 minutes and you were given a warning." Boss reclines to a pensive sulk. "Mr. Codbury, you were employed at this company to be sufficient, not to be spectacular, not to be mediocre, but simply sufficient. And this behaviour lacks a great deal of sufficiency, wouldn't you agree?" Yes, sir," stuttered the boy. Choked with a leather strap, the late book is tightly rebound and put away by brutish bossery. "Good timekeeping is a must, Mr. Codbury. I'm afraid to say your working relationship with Lidman and Son will have to regretfully come to an end." The deep, needlish note pricks the inapt fat lad, setting off a sloppy whimper with bungling shirt boobies. "Oh, please don't sack me, sir. I love this job. I need this job. Mam takes me pay for stews. You like her stew, sir? She brought you some last year. Big pot of it, remember, sir?" Ignoring the cod soon to be served with chips, a stern DL fondles flat the necessary form and begins filling it in with kinky rough ticks. 1 box, 2 box, 3 box, 4 box. Head caught by inky palms, the fatty rocks back and forth, hyperventilating in the rickety guest chair until the final detail remains, a blood-red stamp of completion in the low right-hand corner. Lifting a steely stamper from a gungy preparation pad, Lidman acknowledges the lad's silent, wet sob before aggressively bringing it down with a loud metallic clang, so heartbreaking that Cod gives out a tiny whimper at the moment of connection. Head aligned with rattling knees, holding up a young, quivering hand to receive his freshly prepared severance sheet, the sharp paper slides between his Darwinian fingers, recoiling it back to survey the official ruby-red mark of a bad day as a vast perplexity infects his eggshell shade. The stamp overlapping the square, not of a nightmarish red, nor does it say completed. Instead, a still glistening circular blue stamp has taken its place, stating that this redundancy form is emphatically denied. Befuddled, the porkster lifts his double chin, expecting a pink humanized moon in which to fling his poo of gratitude. Instead, a grey elderly ape grumbles in his bloodline chair, looking uncomfortably at the infant window gale. "Do you know what day it is today?" said Lidman, running a calloused mitt through a thinly existing regimental haircut. "Today is my birthday." Seeking fake emotion, Cod forces a nodding delight. Well, happy birthday, sir." "Never let a birthday pass you by, Mr. Codbury, especially when you're young. When you become an old, dried-up football like me, those milestones pass like any other day. The gifts get smaller and the candles get bigger. However, mine have always been special. I'm proud of it too. Memories. So many wonderful memories of a better tomorrow. You see, my daughter Marianne and I share the same birthday, and it's kept my fire for it. She's throwing a party for us tonight at the old family cottage. There is going to be good food, good wine, and maybe even a bit of dancing. I'm really looking forward to it, Mr. Codbury." Lidman's hairy fist queerly tightens into an angry vibration on the desk. "So I'm sure you can understand that the last thing I want on this day of all days is your overweight, vastly rotund, porking cow of a mother marching her way up to my front door, manically mooing at me for your immediate reinstatement. Now get back to your desk and work. Work, before I change my mind, Codsbury." Thunder and fish! A crack of instantaneous fright strikes the cod flat off the rickety guest chair. Bouncing up in a guppy-eyed panic, he flees with relief through the narrow opening, Pudge diving the grim staircase back to the deafening, lonely, cold comfort of click, clack, click. Gradually, the silent office returns to its default depression, rubbing the sore low vertebrae of his furry curve. Lidman yawningly fists a pregnant side cabinet, birthing a rocks liqueur glass, closely chaperoned by its significant other, a proud, dazzling half-full bottle of Cabin Brown's walnut whisky. Still rolling his bulbs at the immediate past, he prepares a 1-inch drink, lifts it gingerly to his mumbling morning mouth and drains it completely. As the last few nutty, stinging drops free-fall the boss's esophagus, he energetically hides the glass back to its sided nook and stands with a newfound sense of speed, out of place from his recent carefully crafted movements of slow intimidation. Winging the narrow double doors back to beloved solitude, he steals to the howling window, attempting to jiggle it closed, with each red-faced exertion becoming more and more upset and angry, reluctantly letting it loose from his gorilla-ish grip, signalling the jammed pane to come hurtling down with a guillotine slam, missing his sausagey plump thumb by a pixie's prick. "Falling apart, this bloody place. 65, 1 year, 2 year, and so on. How did that happen? I'm now 65 years old." Lidding blue lagoons, he presses the frowning frump of his beetle-boss brow against the cold condensation of the window glass, soothing a frontal race lobe as a raspy female vigour whips his follicle drums from afar. "You look it as well, you ugly git. Drawing away from the relaxing chill, a soft lidman revolves to a milling ancient lady, looming out of the smelly, dingy, dark corridor, bridesmaided by grey cigarette smoke to the tune of a rattling tea tray. Strapped with a haggard handbag, she travels the murky floor with the busy physicality of a war-weary terracotta tank, attacking the old oak desk with cream tea and biscuits, wiping her tobacco-stained fingers down a mustard-brown pencil skirt that seamlessly camouflages into the peeling wallpaper behind her.
"Having our tea Irish style this morning, are we, Daniel?"
she said, eyeing the walnut whisky trying to blend in amongst the office supplies. "It's prescription," shrugged DL in a wavering humour. "Stops the back twinges in my crippling old age." Glaring at him from across the office, her blue-veined back hands pour the boiling Earl Grey into a vapour-waving china cup, sitting hotly on a masochistic saucer.
"Give up your whinging. You're only a bloody child. Do you know where I was on my 65th birthday? Do you?"
Embracing the airborne result of her smouldering woodbine, Daniel reseats at a newly conjured cafe desk. "Oh, let me guess, Gwynnie, you were here."
"You bet your brass balls I was, me lad. Holding the fort downstairs. 60 men so strong with no breaks. Not once did I say to your father, 'Where's my bollocking birthday cake?' God rest him, and for 5 long hours I needed the lavvy. 5 bloody hours. The pain, oh, the pain. I thought my innards was going to pop by the time I made it home. I was pissing like a storm drain."
Graphic. Far, far too graphic, Gwynnie. As Lidman winces his vivid brain box away from the sweet, periodic pee-push of a woman's toilet, the frail lady hitches up her moth-eaten skirt hem, marching high, elbowed to straighten an already perfectly straight portrait hung 3 feet above a boarded-up fireplace, its large, garish frame depicting in weathered brushstrokes a majestic, grand, gangly, seated man with a melted brown moustache, hollow contours and family sapphires of radiant blue with 2 proud basset hounds standing to attention on either side of a chairman's chair.
I know you're gonna think I'm a soppy old slut, but I've bought you a present, being that it's your birthday and all," said Gwyn, rotating boss way with a husky green-tongue cough. Wormy-eyed, D comically slaps his meaty jowl, trying to rouse from a dandelion dream. "Did I really just hear that? Guinevere Troll has actually bought someone a present with her own hard-earned money." Squinting with fury, Gwyn frantically lights a fresh woodbine from behind her spotted ear. "Shut your gob or I'll smack you like I used to. Anyway, I didn't buy it. It's something that's mine that I want to give to you, young grateful little git.
Manoeuvring forward, she rummages mournfully into the concealed black of her inexpensive handbag, Lidman hiding a genuine intrigue. "Lord have mercy, it's not one of your cheese and pickle sandwiches, is it?"
"Shut it. Listen for once, our brat. Your father, he gave me this when I got married to my old Roger, as a sort of wedding gift."
With a painful pout, she presents a glinting 6-inch-long letter-opener, its stubby blade penetrating a leather sheath, its coiled handle morphed into a moody elephant's head. Not knowing what to make of the gesture, Daniel delicately accepts the chromed glint in his hairy meat mitts, reading the elegantly engraved letters of "To my battle-axe" along one of the tusks.
"It's proper and that, real silver. I've had it checked,"
said Gwynnie sharply, with a shiver of sadness, as if she had just cut off one of her own fingers. Leaning deskily in a mild discomposure, Lidman shakes a receding bonce. "Gwyn, can I take this?"
"Course you can, you gobby bastard. Just put it in your pocket."
"Why would you give this to me, Gwynnie? It was engraved for you." Wrinkled lips tucking to a thin line of tightness, she twists her flat, comfortable loafs into the office floor, pondering how best to express herself.
"Well, since Roger, last year, kicked the bucket and all that, I've been thinking a lot about things and my position and what not. To say that I'm old now would be a bit of an understatement. A bloody relic's more like it, and when I eventually shuffle off, as it were, I'm afraid to say the groups of ground vultures that I suppose would be considered my nearest and dearest will racksack my little hovel faster than you can say she's dead, Doctor, and to be honest, it doesn't really bother me. It never has. You can't take it with you, so if they want the lot, they can have every bloody stick of it. But not this. I'm not letting them have this. There's 3 little trinkets that are very dear to me, and this is one of them. So, instead of it landing in the lap of my brother Stan, who would be biting at the bit to melt it down in time for market the next morning, I'd like to give it to you. You're the only one I'd ever give it to."
Reluctant, respectful, and touched by rare sentiment, Lidman rehomes the precious elephanto in the tweeded care of his breast pocket as Gwynnie rapidly blinks ancient wedding day tears back to their toughened ducks, opting instead for a gummy yellowish smile that hurriedly melts upon acknowledging the untouched barley biscuits.
"Oi, get on with eating them. A whole shilling they cost."
"I'm resisting need to save my gut for tonight," said Dee, sipping his tea, avoiding the small floating flakes of kettle-born lime-scale, while showing a routine enjoyment to an arms akimbo Gwyn.
"A party, is it? Who's coming to muddy your floor, then?"
"Well, I'll be there, obviously. My chum Larry from the NCA and maybe a few other members. I think Marianne's got a couple of work friends coming. Who have I missed out? Oh, yeah, my neighbour Mrs. Bettridge and her son have been invited as well, and that's about it, I'm afraid." Gwyn puffs with the expression of a smelled fart.
"Well, don't expect me to pad out the guest list. It's me Friday night. I'll be down lamb and duck with Beryl Miggs. They're doing Irish folk night with meat pies."
With great eccentricity, the frail lady jumps into an odd combination of kabuki theatre and Morris dancing, running short of breath in a matter of seconds to indulge in a phlegm-filled coughing fit as she corrals the bone china, drinking the dregs of Earl Grey left in Lidman's cup, followed by a crammed biscuit.
"What's the NCA, anyway?"
she asked, spraying a dazzling display of avian crumbs. "Stands for the National Coin Association. I'm head of committee for the Birmingham branch," swelled DL with a pinch of pride.
"You are? So you just meet up like and look at grubby grey coins together in a big huddle?"
"Well, in a way, yes. But they're very old coins, Gwyn. Spanish reales.
Portuguese tangas, Saxon pennies, each one a little wee piece of the past. They're fascinating. Well, it sounds like a right chuffing crack I hope never to witness. With any luck I'll be counting my own pennies tonight, at the bar, that is. Erupting in a crazy-eyed cackle, she slides the dying woodbine to the crusted corner of her spluttering, biscuity grin, elevates the weighty tea tray with winged elbows, and courageously tanks her noisy one-woman band back down the shadow-bound corridor, her smoke-lingering laugh eventually fading away with a selfless symphony of clinking porcelain. Alone again, thinking of tonight and attempting to avoid for a brief jiffy the mourning pile of awaiting paperwork, Daniel confronts the grizzled wall clock with a breathy procrastination before a freshly injected pen hand hits the first quotation. Steadily, he works all through the day, banning his old blues for the medusa'd quarterly face, beaming from its high-hooked position, and despite its timely siren song tempting him once or twice, the towering paper-cut pile diminishes lower and lower until the scribbling fountain pen is startled still by an aggressively shrill home bell reaching its daily orgasm from the lower floor. Creaking free from a muscly desk lean, Lidman's painfully rigid neck adjusts to a forward cannonball of disorientation. 5. Can't be 5 already. Can it? Strong and pungent, the pickly cheese scent of an untouched sandwich, coldly placed on the edge of the desk, the last unwanted remnants of a 2:30 break, completely forgotten. Rubbing the aching numb of his tree-trunk thighs, the rummy long hand flicks past the 5, prompting a semi-confident knock at the solitudinous doors. Quickly the potent sandwich joins the hiding wet whiskey glasses. Mr. Lidman frantically grabs the closest form to hand and starts ticking an already ticked list of staff lavatory maintenance. "Come in," he exclaimed, returning to a mean militant boom as Mr. Richmore's fake thin skeleton grin hangs into view. "Very productive day, sir. We done well. 42 quotes and booted a good 10% off the backlog," asserted Richmore, flaring his nostrils, trying to detect where the pong of pickle is coming from. "Adequate, but not good enough," growled the grim chairman from a familiar heavy hunch. "We're behind. I want to be ahead by Friday next. Any reservations, Mr. Richmore?" "Absolutely not, sir. They'll get it done, or God help 'em, I'll—" "Good. That will be all," interrupted D, dropping his severe sop to repeatedly ring the random sentence. "End stall in dire need of new ballcock." Listening to his number 2 hurriedly flush down the grandeur stairs, Lidman waits for the full evacuation of clerks to muse in his hairy shells before happily disposing of his sequestered, smelly bin sandwich, clothing his bouldered shoulders with a long grey leaving coat and tough gloves of black pig leather. Stealing onto the spacious landing, he grants a solicitous sight to the never-ending rain attacking the office window, damning his lack of foresight as well as an absent umbrella. By and by, the highs and goodbyes of the grand staircase complete the old man's prospering way across the shadowy mottled brown aisle, the floor once colonized by paper roll mountains now completely empty, its vast lonesomeness only comforted by the filtered sun, shining its
pampered rods through the lengthy left windows to lay rest over the dark hall of abandoned adding machines, each sheathed with individual strength dust covers. Massaging a tight pinch in his shirted barrel chest, the ghostly inner alcove cuddles his tempered grunt to the oversized battened brass handles. Predicting a powerful vacuum from the whirling wild wind, Lidman swells his well of quiet rage, clamping the twin brass with two simian dukes, and with an elderly roar wrenches them open to greet the home-time world of honking car horns and the delicate spit of dusk-lit rain droplets. U-turning back to the door, Longcoat dancing to the tempo of any and all airstreams of warm storm humidity, he locks his family innards with a long key length of distressed copper, freeing up a ruing fist. Bloody foreign weather. Waterlogged and pea-green in colour, a venerable old Ford, parked too near Sandstone, tiredly awaits as D.L. clogs down the stone steps to meet its soggy glisten. Doubling up his wide body with a dirty embryonic slam, the orchestral sounds of homebound vehicles become muffled, mild and minky. Ignition turned, the ride of rotten interior gives a half-hearted rev before dying into obscurity. Forced to try again, the car gives a faint metallic clang from deep inside its failing combustion. Utterly irked, Daniel tiredly squeezes the sweaty thin ridges of Mr. Steering Wheel. You only have one job, one thing to do in life, and I expect it done well. Start, or you're scrap. Assuredly, the cowering old transport complies, shuddering to life with a loud, unhealthy petrol moan, careering onto the bleak high street and driving a shade of pea-green into the rapidly brief landscape, the multi-grade market stalls being packed away, the red rolling apples in the gushing gutter, the locked and local library, all painted a golden glaze by the hot-dying sun, beaming bright in the low sky, fighting the hungry horizon for a long-lasting dwindle. Travelling for 23 minutes out of the coal-black metropolis, passing rustic pubs and muddy mingles, the surrounding landmarks becoming less evolved, less populated and vastly untamed, the filthy wheels spinning with high velocity down a thin country lane, bullied by dense bramble bushes, running raw against the rusted car handles, eager to embrace home and daughter. The birthday boy ankles the speed, tackling a virgin bend at a walloping 30, sharp thorn needles slashing along the flaking green paintwork as a blur of red fur dashes from the thick pubish bramble across the narrow wet road in close proximity to the hurtling pea-green Ford, its glowing vaporous headlamp illuminating the fright-filled face of a young fox cub, losing faith in its good pace, frozen with fear, its parting little jaw growing wider and wider as Old Man D, gasping, stomps a screeching pedal to bring the car to an immediate halt. But it's too late. The fox is too young and the brakes are too old. The poor cub's body temporarily lifts the back axle as the dragging, guilt-filled Ford finally scours its grittish tyres to a shivering standstill. Sitting stunned with up and down lungs, Lidman wipes his heavily frowned forehead with a shaking leather palm, turning his big bottom to face the matted pile of red burgundy still twitching in the distance. Foreseeing in a solemn stare that the oozing animal will be dead within the hour, he starts the ragged motor with a held breath and continues in a driving haste to his fated celebration. But here and now, free and alive, behind the wheel of a rushing green pea, blissfully unaware of just how lucky fox cubs can be.